At 87 years old, Gregory Peck, Hollywood's most dignified leading man, finally whispered a truth he had carried in silence for decades: there was one woman he never stopped loving. Not a public romance. Not a tabloid headline. But the quiet, aching love of a lifetime, hidden behind the poise, the Oscars, and the timeless roles. Long before the red carpets and roaring applause, Eldred Gregory Peck was just a boy growing up in La Jolla, California, born on April 5, 1916. His world was shaken early when his parents divorced at the age of 6, forcing him to grow up fast under the care of his grandmother. But even through hardship, he carried a quiet resilience and a haunting depth, traits that would one day captivate the world. He wasn't chasing fame, he was chasing purpose. At San Diego State, and later at UC Berkeley, he pursued English and pre-med, until one fateful moment on a campus stage changed everything. Acting lit a fire inside him. And from that spark, one of the most respected careers in cinematic history would rise. But behind the elegance and the roles he perfected, there remained one love, unspoken. Until now. That passion for performance grew so powerful, it completely redirected his life. Gregory Peck walked away from medicine, turning down a path of certainty and prestige, to chase a calling that stirred his soul. It was a bold move, one that would ultimately make him one of the most revered icons in American film history. His acting journey began humbly, rooted in the theater. He honed his craft in regional productions and traveling stage companies, where his commanding presence and deep emotional range quickly set him apart. By the early 1940s, he had made it to Broadway, captivating live audiences with the very qualities that would soon dazzle millions on the big screen. Hollywood came calling fast. His film debut in 1944's Days of Glory marked the beginning of a meteoric rise. With his towering frame, resonant voice, and quiet strength, Gregory Peck didn't just act, he embodied ideals. Audiences saw in him not just a performer, but a symbol of integrity, justice, and unwavering compassion. Whether he was playing a small-town lawyer or a tortured soldier, Peck brought a moral gravity that made every role unforgettable, and every character deeply human. Perhaps the most defining moment of Gregory Peck's legendary career came in 1962, when he stepped into the role of Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird, adapted from Harper Lee's Pulitzer Prize-winning novel. This wasn't just a performance, it was a cultural milestone. As Atticus, Peck didn't merely play a character, he became the moral compass of a generation. Portraying a principled Southern lawyer defending a black man falsely accused of rape in the deeply segregated American South, Peck brought to life a figure of quiet strength, unshakable integrity, and fearless justice. His portrayal resonated far beyond the silver screen. It earned him the Academy Award for Best Actor and cemented his legacy as more than an actor, he became a symbol of conscience. The American Film Institute would later name Atticus Finch the greatest hero in American film history, a reflection not just of the character's nobility, but of Peck's own deep humanity. Through Atticus, Gregory Peck gave the world a portrait of what it truly means to stand up for what's right, even when the world stands against you. Gregory Peck was a well-known actor, but he was also a committed humanitarian and activist. He used his fame to fight for causes he believed in throughout his life, and he often spoke out against unfairness and injustice. During the McCarthy era, he spoke out against the Hollywood blacklist, bravely going against the widespread fear and suspicion that shut down much of the entertainment business. He also fought for civil rights, was involved in anti-war groups during the Vietnam War, and wanted to get rid of all nuclear weapons. He didn't care about social growth just to show off. It was a strong belief that showed in the parts he chose and the things he said in public. People remember what he said: tough times don't last, tough people do. A line that showed both how heroic he was on TV and how strong he was in real life. PC has been in a lot of movies, including Roman Holiday, 1953, in which he played with Audrey Hepburn, Spellbound, 1945, which was directed by Alfred Hitchcock, The Guns of Navarone, 1961, Cape Fear, 1962, and The Omen, 1976. He was very good at writing many types of books, from romantic comedies and war plays to thrillers and epic adventures. 5 times he was nominated for and won the Academy Award for Best Actor. During his lifetime, he also received many other awards, such as the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1969 and the Jean Herschel Humanitarian Award in 1967, which show not only his artistic skills but also his commitment to helping people. Gregory Peck married Finnish-American Greta Kuusinen in October 1942. She was the start of what would become one of the most famous careers in Hollywood history. She was a strong, quiet woman who would be a big part of his early family life. Greta was born in Finland in 1911 and moved to the United States, where she became an important and well-educated person in Gregory's life. They had 3 boys together as a family. Jonathan was born in 1944, Stephen in 1946, and Carrie Paul in 1949. During these early years, PC became a bigger star in Hollywood, which was both a claim and a pressure. Even though the Peck family had a public image of glitz and success, their personal relationships were tested by the stress that comes with being famous. During these difficult times, Greta, who was known for her quiet strength, kept their children feeling safe and secure. After more than 10 years of marriage, though, their union finally came to an end, and in December 1955, they got a divorce. It was an important and sad turning point in PC's mental and personal life. Years later, the terrible tragedy that happened to the PC family is still one of the saddest parts of Gregory PC's life. Jonathan, his oldest son, was found dead in his home on June 26, 1975. The police came to the conclusion that it looked like a suicide. The terrible death of his son broke Peck, who was normally very strong and calm. He was honest about the fact that the pain of losing Jonathan would never quite go away. In an honest moment, Peck once said, "It's the worst thing that has ever happened to me. You never get over a thing like that." He was haunted by grief for the rest of his life, showing that the strong and good figures he played on screen were really weak. Jonathan was a smart and caring young man. His death left a deep wound in the family and changed PC's view of life and death. In the middle of his marriage to Greta, Peck had a difficult time emotionally when he had a short but intense affair with his famous co-star, the Swedish actress Ingrid Bergman. Both stars were young, enthusiastic, and in the thick of the intense emotional atmosphere that Alfred Hitchcock's thriller required of them at the time. Years later, in an interview with Brad Derrick of People magazine in 1987, Peck admitted to having an affair. He spoke with a mix of anger and reluctance. "I loved her very much, and I think that's all I should say about it. I was young. She was young. We worked together closely and hard for weeks." This statement showed how complicated PC's humanity is. Someone who can feel deep love and deep regret, caught between his sense of duty and the strong feelings that come up when they are close and work together on art. He met and fell in love with another woman soon after his first marriage ended. She would become very important in his life. Peck married Veronique Paani on New Year's Eve 1955, just one day after getting divorced from Greta. Paani was a writer from Paris who used to write about arts and culture for the French newspaper France. Gregory and Veronique met for the first time in 1952, right before Gregory went for Italy to film Roman Holiday. Even though their meeting was only for business reasons, Peck remembered something about what they talked about. After 6 months, he called her to invite her to lunch. A simple meal turned into a relationship that will last a lifetime. They became deeply romantically connected and couldn't be separated because they admired each other and thought alike. They had 2 kids together, a son named Anthony, born in 1956, and a girl named Cecilia, born in 1958. Anthony later worked in show business, and for a while he was married to the famous supermodel Cheryl Tees, who made news as the person who brought Hollywood and fashion together. As a well-known documentary filmmaker and actress, Cecilia Peck made her own way. She carried on her father's artistic tradition with works that dealt with social justice, women's rights, and political activism. Even though PC's life was full of heartaches and problems, his marriage to Veronique stayed strong and long-lasting. They were married for almost 50 years, and everyone who knew them said they loved each other deeply, trusted each other, and shared beliefs. Veronique was there for him during the hardest times in his life and business, like when Jonathan died and when he was doing political and charitable work afterward. Peck often said that her presence kept him grounded and gave him strength when life got rough. Greg Peck was also proud to be a grandfather. His grandchildren, some of whom continued to be creative in his shoes, carried on his work into the next generation. One of his grandchildren from his first marriage is the actor Ethan Peck, who looks a lot like his famous grandfather and has carried on the Peck name in movies and TV shows, most famously playing a young Spock in the Star Trek series. Gregory had a continuing effect on both movies and his own family, as shown by the fact that his descendants are still working in the arts. Gregory Peck finally tells her she was the love of his life when he was 87 years old. Bergman was added. Gregory Peck, the famous actor whose face was in some of Hollywood's most memorable movies, finally told someone a secret he had been keeping to himself for more than 50 years. It was a quiet, thoughtful moment near the end of his amazing life. At age 87, after decades of fame, family life, and praise, he didn't think about his many awards or his box office successes. Instead, he thought about Ingrid Bergman, a beautiful and mysterious woman who had left an indelible mark on his mind. The first time they were together was on the set of Spellbound in 1945, in the late 1940s. The captivating psychological thriller by Alfred Hitchcock. As a rising star, Peck was known for having deep eyes and a strong sense of right and wrong. While Bergman was already a star, known all over the world for her roles in movies like Casablanca and Gaslight. On screen, you could feel how well they got along. A lot of people didn't know, though, that the emotion they saw on screen was a reflection of something deeper and more personal that went on behind the scenes. Over the years, film historians and people close to them would talk about stories, but Peck always kept quiet out of respect. At the time, he was married to Greta Kusanen. He and Bergman both knew what was at stake in terms of their careers, their personal lives, and their morals. But years later, just before he died, Peck finally told the truth in an interview that was very open and honest. He told her, "IGNG was the love of my life," in a soft, nostalgic voice and with a faraway look in his eyes. "I've thought about her all the time." This statement shocked people not because it seemed so unlikely, but because it proved what many had thought for a long time. Peck said that their relationship was more than just sexual attraction. He said that Bergman was smart, sensitive, brave, and that her soul was full of light. He remembered how smart, funny, and kind she was, as well as the quiet talks they had between takes, when they weren't being watched by the camera and she was just Ingrid and he was just Greg. Peck stated that the relationship at the time couldn't last. They both had other things to do and people they were responsible for. He never forgot about her, though. He got married again, raised kids, did a lot of volunteer work, and got involved in politics and social causes, but the memory of Ingrid stayed with him. It was a bittersweet reminder of what could have been. He said that some people leave a mark on your heart that can't be erased by time. That was her. It looks like the link made an effect on Bergman too. She never said outright that she was dating Peck, but her later letters and diary notes showed that she liked and admired him in a way that went beyond professional respect. Peck's statement in his later years wasn't just an emotional wake-up call. It changed into also a profound act of honesty. At a factor in life when legacy frequently overshadows vulnerability, he selected to speak no longer as a screen legend, but as a man who had cherished deeply and quietly, and who for the primary time desired the world to know. "I had an excellent lifestyles," he said, "a complete one. But some matters, despite the fact that brief, stay with you forever." That is what she became, forever. In those final years, as Laptop's silver hair and dignified demeanor reminded fans of the quiet strength he had usually exuded on screen, he shared with the sector a hidden tenderness that made him all of the more human. It was now not a confession born of regret, however, of remembrance, of a love not misplaced, but loved inside the recesses of reminiscence. And so, because the curtain slowly closed on Gregory Peck's great existence, one very last scene lingered, now not one captured on film, but one etched inside the coronary heart of a person who had eventually and courageously spoken his fact. On June 12, 2003, Gregory Peck, one of the maximum respected and iconic actors in the records of Yankee cinema, exceeded away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 87. The motive of dying was bronchopneumonia, a severe lung infection that can be specifically risky for the aged. He died at his longtime residence in California, a city that had witnessed much of his storied profession and personal life. By his side in those final moments turned into his beloved wife, Gregory Peck, a French journalist and philanthropist whom he had married in 1955. Their bond had continued for nearly many years, and Veronique's steadfast presence at his deathbed symbolized the deep love and companionship that had described their life collectively. Peck's dying marked the cease of a generation, and his passing changed into deeply mourned by way of enthusiasts, colleagues, and admirers round the sector. His remains have been embedded within the Cathedral of Our Woman of the Angels in La, a striking and cutting-edge Catholic cathedral that serves because the Maun Church of the Archdiocese of La. The mausoleum wherein he was laid to rest has since turned out to be an area of quiet reflection for the ones wishing to pay tribute to the person who added a lot dignity, integrity, and quiet energy to the display screen. At his funeral, which turned into a solemn but profoundly moving event, one of the maximum poignant moments came when actor Brock Peters brought the eulogy. Peters had performed Tom Robinson, the black man falsely accused of raping a white lady whom computers man or woman, the principled legal professional Atticus Finch, so powerfully defended inside the landmark 1962 movie To Kill a Mockingbird that Peters becomes selected to speak was deeply symbolic. It introduced to the forefront no longer only the professional connection among the two actors, however additionally the enduring impact of the movie, which had long been lauded for its message of racial justice and ethical braveness. Peters's words commemorated now not just the actor, but the values computer stood for in each his roles and his actual life. The funeral drew a big selection of Hollywood's best, with many legendary actors, singers, writers, and producers in attendance to pay their respects. Amongst them became Lauren Beale, the smoky-voiced actress who had risen to reputation at some point of the identical golden age of Hollywood that fashioned Laptop's career. Sidney Poitier, the primary black actor to win the Academy Award for High Quality Actor and an established buddy and admirer of Peck, turned into additionally present, as changed into singer and activist Harry Belafonte and his daughter, actress Sherry Belafonte. The listing of attendees examined like a who's who of the enjoyment global, underscoring the colossal respect Peck commanded across generations. Actor Harrison Ford and his associate Callista Flockhart got here to honor a man Ford had referred to as a power. Veteran television actors Mike Frell and Shelley Fabares, recognized for his or her very own contributions to TV and movie, also paid tribute. Jimmy Smits, acknowledged for his powerful performances in each drama and law enforcement roles, came to honor the moral gravitas that Peck had lengthy represented. Different brilliant mourners covered Louis Jordan, the French actor who like Peck had bridged ECU and American cinema, Diane Cannon and Stephanie Zimbliest, actresses of outstanding careers, and Michael York regarded for his classical roles and commanding voice. Display legend Angie Dickinson turned into there, as was Larry Galbart, the writer and producer High Quality regarded for developing the hit TV series MASH, and singer and pop icon Michael Jackson, whose admiration for classical Hollywood stars was nicely documented. Angelica Houston, a member of a Hollywood dynasty and an performed actress in her own right, attended along singer Lionel Richie and Oscar-prevailing actress Louise Fletcher. Tony Danza, liked for his roles in TV comedies and dramas, additionally came to honor the legacy of an actor who had set the gold standard for male leads in Hollywood. Actress Piper Laurie, regarded for her deeply emotional performances, rounded out the long listing of distinguished attendees, all of whom had amassed not simply to mark the cease of an existence, however to have fun, a person who had touched limitless others on display screen and stale with his grace, humanity, and unwavering feel of decency.